So yeah, why do you want your kids, just shout out, why do you want your children to play sport? What's the reasons? So for enjoyment. Oh, seriously, mate. Enjoyment. Is this now going to turn into a game? Hey? Friends. Teamwork. Otherwise known as camaraderie. I can hardly say it, never mind spell it. Okay, so the stuff around losing, winning, okay? But it's the lessons around it. It's kind of life. We have some good stuff, not so good stuff. Anything else? Commitment. Sorry, I'll come back to that one. Pardon? Okay, so to actually shift them away around health. So yeah, that might be a little bit around physical health. Sorry, there was one before and I didn't quite hear it. What was it? It was a lady spoke, I don't know. Okay, health and fitness. Yeah. Anything else? Pardon? Yeah, so there'd be quite a lot of evidence to support that, just around the balance. And we'll all be pretty keen around that. Health would be mental and physical health, so well said. There's lots of information out there now around mental health, so stuff we know around mental health and mental well-being.
You could say role models and what's been happening with the next World Cup, so that sort of continuity of wanting to do something that people on the television and stuff.
Yep, okay. Yeah, so lots of, and I don't know about these two, please just come in any time. Don't know who your role models were, but yeah, lots of high achievers, high performers said there was a moment. It was this person. I was listening to Pete Richards talk, and he talked about a South African scum-half called Van Hazen. He said he was my role model. I had pictures of him every day. I tried to be like him. Absolutely. Maybe, and I'm sure there will. Lots of these kids will be role models to other kids in their own environments. Anything else? Pardon? Okay, so having some goals, having some direction. Yeah. And the processes are around that. I'm trying to get, I'm this good, I want to be that good. There's some process stuff that goes around that. Yes, sport would give that. Any more? Not saying there is, just curious. Oops, sorry Karen, what was yours? Responsibility. How do you mean?
For themselves, in terms of, as a part of the team, have they got what they need for training? Can they pack their own bags? If they've got a strength and conditioning program, are they doing that, taking responsibility for doing that?
Okay, so self-organising, self-reliant responsibility. It would be important. Stuff I've noticed around young people is, and I don't think it's a perception, I deal a lot with young people, they're probably less self-organised. Lots of stuff's organised for them. Do this past paper, read this, there's the information, you find it there, do this, do that, that type of stuff. Maybe they've lost some of the skills around that. Sport I think would give you lots of those skills. Okay, awesome. So there's, what, sorry? Oh, sorry. What was it? Respect. How do you mean respect? Well, what does that mean?
Respect for yourself, the team, the rules, the officials.
Yeah, cool. And certainly from a rugby point of view, it's one of the core values. One of our treads, teamwork, respect, and there's 3 of us. I do know them. Enjoyment, discipline, sportsmanship. Other sports would have the same, hockey, netball, sport generally. So these are our values. This is how we expect you to behave. Believe it or not, football have some as well. People just make a decision not to actually demonstrate them. I often have a dig at football. Get in. 1-0, 1-0. Okay, awesome. So this is actually this is what the people say. So these are the reasons. So when you give them choice, so we're going to give you some choice. You have either a big list or just come up with some stuff. This is what they say. So fun, enjoyment, opportunity to play. Actually, it's a very social thing. My mates go, I want to hang with my mates, want to make some new friends. So we're pack animals. Most of us live in cities. We like being with people most of the time, type stuff. Kids will be the same. Actually, I want to get better at stuff, fitness, team. I'm pretty good, test myself. And then they'd probably focus a little bit around the outcome. Actually, I play because I want to win some stuff, which is cool. And because winning often is something interesting, you referenced it, but it was in a reference around it's actually that behaviour that goes with winning or losing. They don't play sport just to win. I've got 3 lads. I'd be pretty keen to get them environments where ideally they would look like this. They win slightly more than they lose. That would be the ideal model. But they have to lose quite a lot. I'd be really nervous. My eldest boy's in a team. He's actually in a school where they win a lot. To be fair, their rugby masters definitely trying to find ways where they're also experiencing the other side of it, type stuff. I'm always really nervous about teams and kids that win loads. I think they're missing opportunities to be more resilient. And some lessons I go with that. Why do you think kids stop playing sport? It's a bad question. It's the opposite to why they do. Okay, I'll actually just show, so that wasn't a good question. So the number one reason, well, it's just not fun, I'm just not enjoying it, and they'll then get to an age, so around teenagers, and they'll start making some decisions, and they'll start actually, not back answering you, but saying respectfully, mother and father, I don't want to go to rugby today, because I'm actually not having fun. So the type of stuff they're doing, or I don't feel valued, or there'll be lots of stuff. So number one reason is it just stops being fun. The pressure around winning and competition, sometimes by that environment, often by parents. So don't think, they're damn coaches and the club. Often it's the parents. So that's what kids will tell us. Yes, it is also the club and it's also the thing. But they're also, it's actually the conversations in the car and it's the things that go around that type stuff. Less opportunity to play in a number of sports. Certainly in rugby we've brought in a half-game rule. Why we have to bring in a half-game rule, I've got no idea. Why wouldn't it just be common sense that everybody has very similar opportunities based around safety? But believe it or not, it doesn't happen. Some poor coaching, they lose interest, too much time. This starts frightening, so from the age of 12, so they're just getting into their teenage years where they're starting to make more decisions from themselves. 35% of kids stop playing sport every year, and this is across the world. Then you take that number, then you lose another 35%, then you take that number, then you lose another 35%, then you take that number and you lose another 30%. There are clearly other reasons as well. There is a lot more choice, there's a lot more opportunities. When I went to school, when you went to school, you probably had a choice of 3 or 4 sports. Now, there's lots of sports, and there appears to be less time, both for them and us, so there's less opportunity. So there's definitely lots of reasons. But that's maybe something to consider. Just have a read of this. I'm going to tell them a terrible joke. Anybody play in the front row in rugby? Who played in the front row? Anybody play front row? Cool. When you finish reading, can you tell us, please? Thanks, Nick. We're laughing with you, Nick. We're laughing with you. We're laughing with you. He's still reading it. He's still reading it. Okay, just show of hands. Who wants their child to be involved in Team B? Who thinks that's a good environment? Okay, cool. Team A? Okay. Anybody change their minds? Why do we think we've had this conversation, or we've shared this information, and definitely that one? What's the nudge we're trying to nudge it towards? Do you think? What's the message in here? Yep. So winning isn't everything. So if you ask your children, the vast majority of activity they would have done this, it would have been scored. There would have been a winner. There would have been a loser. So competitiveness is significantly important, Mark. However, it's about the process of trying to do it. That's the most important thing. If you win, lose, or draw, I don't think it's that emotional. As and when they're young, it's a little bit more serious. If I was Eddie Jones, I'd be focusing a lot on trying to win stuff. So yeah, any other messages?
Less personal development in Team A.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, so there'll be less personal development stuff. That wouldn't be a good environment. Yeah, definitely shouts out that, there's a lot of stuff going on, coaches telling them stuff. Anything else? I'm not saying there is, I'm just curious. Yeah, so attitude's important. Attitude's important. If we just shift back to you guys, we're going to talk a little about later. It's actually about identifying what's important. What's the reasons why you think sport's so cool? And that's actually the stuff we should hold at the front of our mind. It's definitely the stuff we should be having conversations about. What's the first thing we talk to kids about when they come off the pitch? And just be honest. What's the first question you ask your child? Dads especially. Cool, well done you. You're going for Dad of the Year. I'm enjoying it. I sometimes don't always hear that. Often other dads, other parents, no parents in here. What do you hear from them? Bad parents. Did you win? And they'll go, no. Did you score? No. Okay. Okay, that's cool. So this is a situation that was live. This is a live situation. There's some rugby matches going on. This guy's a deputy head, and he definitely should know better. I've been doing some work from the school, which is good feedback for me. And he's seen his kid come on. His kid was like, and I think the guy had made an assumption that they'd won. The lad, Patrick, plays for a team that don't win that often. So his dad was in, did you win? And Patrick went. And he went from this bubbly guy and he went, no. And he goes, and then he asked the next one, did you score? Because he's like, oh, God. He was searching for questions. Said no. And then they had a really awkward conversation. And he then turned to me, because I was quite close to him. There's a wasp in your hair. Just be careful. It's now in your hair. I've got it. That's one disadvantage of opening the door. So yeah, he kind of got that wrong. I mean, basically what had happened, and he could have, is that Patrick he'd been voted the man of the match. He'd had an absolutely outstanding game. They got a lot closer to a team where at the beginning of the year they got thumped by. There was some real good behaviour. Lots of things have been transferring out of training. He was really chuffed, and he's really proud. And he's like, he was deflated. Just be mindful. So my advice, we're going to talk some more about it a little bit later, is just have conversations with what's important. So if you say that's important, then have conversations about that first. And then, of course, you can ask them. I'm always curious. My son's currently playing cricket. I'm curious to however, there's definitely things that's more important. So my conversations often won't start with, did you win? They'll start with, what was your best thing? Did you try anything different? Blah, blah, blah. Who you enjoy watching? That type of stuff. Oh, no, by the way. I'll be honest, I have conversation with my kid, and I often get the result wrong. So I'm thinking, I assumed they've lost. And you go, oh, no, we won easy. I'm going, okay. And vice versa. So just maybe something to think about. So every time you give an instruction, you're taking the decision-making opportunity away. So you're telling your child to pass or watch him or tackle or do this. That's not decision-making. He's following, or they are following instruction. You're taking the process of decision-making away. Now you could probably prompt. So tell them to pass, just say, well, where's the space? So it's a question. It's reasonably closed because you're trying to nudge them towards some stuff. So that's definitely better. So if you feel the urge to actually share some information with people on the pitch, then just think about how you're going to prompt to get them to think, basically. So think about the start of it. I don't think you should ever instruct unless somebody's going to get hurt. And then, obviously, that's when you would. So the only time anybody should ever instruct anybody is if there's somebody going to get hurt. Should I tell them my penknife story?
Do you want to come back next year?
Tell you my penknife story. So at the age of 6, I've bought my 3 lads a penknife. I think 6 is a reasonable age. Actually, they weren't. One of them was nearly 7. And guess what's happened in the back of the car as we've left the shop that sells. By the way, they're only little penknives. So they do some sort of whittling and stuff. Anybody guess what happens in the back seat? We're within 5 minutes. Pardon? No, they're not. They haven't knifed the car seats. We're from the northeast, not the northwest. Sorry, Karen. Sorry, Karen. We're posh over there. I'm going to give you a clue. Yeah, so they've cut their thumb. They've cut the same thumb. It's their right thumb as they've opened it up. They've only ever cut their thumb once. My wife thinks I'm bananas. But however, so that's just some of things around that. So I definitely could have told them, open it up, be really careful, watch you don't cut your thumb. But however, on that case, it was only a small cut, mums. But yeah, they have, all 3 of them. In fact, the other one over 2 have been like waiting for him to cut his thumb because of the moment. This is some good information. What are the aims of the session? So some people have been hanging around. I've had a couple of interesting conversations with parents who have been hanging around who possibly haven't maybe afforded them an opportunity to actually understand what the aims were. So they might have benefited from saying, so what was the purpose of the session? Before coming with some views around what they've seen. type stuff. So actually, what is the purpose? What's the coach trying to do? What's the sport trying to do? I think a real good use of your time is to set some challenges. So I would set my kids challenges often. I'd use clicker. I know lots of people, as parents, put your hands up if anybody's got clickers. And it reminds you of the 1980s when we used to go to the nightclub. Anybody got clickers? Yeah, so some people have. So I would use clickers a lot as a parent and as a coach. Basically, a clicker is it just records information. So my role as a parent when I'm watching my kids, if they want me to, is what stuff do you want me to notice? What stuff do you want them to give me some feedback on? So how many different ways they got the ball back, how many times they offloaded it, how many times they solved problems, how many times they supported somebody else. The stuff that they think was important. So that's what I would do. That's a good thing for you to do as parents. This is the classic. So ask if they want feedback. I have got this wrong a couple of times, definitely. So my kids got really upset when I just haven't actually afforded them an opportunity to ask them, do you want some feedback? So, so definitely that's what I'd be thinking. Because often when you want to give them feedback, it's probably not the right time. I mean, most of them would be aware of stuff that's not going that well, or if they haven't performed maybe as they would. You actually telling them stuff is not that helpful. So how do you want it? How do you want feedback? How is this going to work? And think of feedback as this. Feedback is them to us. That's how feedback should, not us to them. I don't think that's a good way to view feedback. And often as parents and grown-ups, that's how we give feedback. I've got some experiences, I've got some thoughts, I've got some expectations, and I'm going to give you some feedback based on them, rather than maybe asking them type stuff. So that's how it would have worked at these camps. Feedback is from them to us. Okay? And ideally what they should be really good at is peer-to-peer feedback. And they listen to their mates a lot more. So I benefit from having my son and his mates in the car, because I can just generate peer-to-peer feedback. So what's the best thing that Ollie did today? What's the best thing that Nathan did? What did you like about him? How would you make him better? Because they care a lot more about what they say than what I say, as an example. Ask what's important. So the stuff, we spoke about it, stuff that you think's important as a family. The Fletcher actually have some Fletcher stuff, and that's what we ask about each other. So trying hard's really hard in the Fletcher house. If they don't try hard, or I don't try hard, then definitely I'm getting hold of the call. So I cooked a meal the other day, it wasn't very good, and my little fella definitely pulled me up on it. Said, really, Dad, sausages, potatoes and beans again? I think you can try better, type stuff. That was our conversation. So just be aware of that. Just around questioning, just avoid questions where they can answer yes or no. So did, can, is, they're not particularly good questions, they're really closed. So you can open them up a little bit with some hows, whens, whys type stuff. And if you want to be really open, like I'm curious about what sort of stuff you're thinking about. It's definitely a lot more about the environment than what people think. So environment's really important, and then clearly the top one is your training, which is your environment. So I would be giving some considerations of what environments they are in, with the people who they're playing with. What does that look like? If they're winning too much, I'd be challenging that. Be honest, if they're losing a lot, I'd be challenging that as well. That's not that helpful. Personally, if I had a choice, I'd rather my kids were losing a lot than winning a lot. I think they're going to develop some more skills around that type stuff. So you put all that together, the talent sits somewhere in the middle. So distilling potential into expertise requires a rare blend of genetics, environment, good planning, and luck. I've got some awesome stories on luck. Basically, somebody's injured, somebody becomes ill, somebody gets an opportunity, they play well, and then some smart so-and-so coach said, that was all part of the plan. And I'm sitting in the background thinking, no, it wasn't, mate. It's just luck. And actually some of that does happen, right place, right time, does, believe it or not, happen in performance sport. It's just happened a lot. So Chris Froome falls off his bike, 22-year-old kid goes and wins the Tour de France. That probably wouldn't have happened, because he would have been racing for, because it was Chris Froome's big thing. That is just luck. So that's an element of all the other stuff. Look, have you got any good luck stories about talent development stuff? If you are talented, so say you're having some good moments and you're getting some recognition, you're less likely to push the barriers out because you're getting praise for being good at that. So often high performers, as young people, who are often second, third, fourth, fifth best. So they're the ones who are reaching for someone often. So someone or something, they want to go past that person. This person's thinking, Christ, they're catching up. And by the way, I'm getting loads of praise. So why would I try and get better? type stuff. So just really be mindful. That's why all this nonsense around giving people prizes and cups when they're young, all you're doing is you're putting a huge amount of pressure on that person and you're just highly motivating everybody else. So if your kid doesn't get one, go, yes, this is awesome. Because he's just going to go, right. And it's definitely happening with my kids. So any team I'm involved with, if there is going to be some stuff like that, we just don't go, quite frankly, because we just don't believe in it. When they get older and they better understand it through maturation, 16, 17, that's absolutely fine. But when they're little, don't be putting people on pedestals just to get knocked off. It's really not healthy for them. It's pretty cool if you come second, though. So on the relative age effect, believe it or not, the little fella's older. So chronologically, he's born earlier than the big fella. However, the big fella's earlier through maturation, puberty. Okay, so relative age effect is fundamentally, it's that. It's just around when do you start maturation. So here's some information. So again, just read that. The one in the middle I'll read out. So for boys, it's 14.1. It can be 3 years either side. Girls, it's younger. It's actually 2 years. So 3 years either side. So you can have a kid who is starting maturation 11, and you can have a kid at 17 who's starting maturation. They would be the extremes. You just got to look out there when you're wandering around and you're seeing the big, tall guys. And now clearly, and the bit at the bottom, often, physical maturity is often mistaken for talent or potential. And this often results in selection of teams and programs at the expense of the late maturing players. And basically what happens, so you're born early, and say you've got a good training age, so you're actually doing some stuff, then you just get the best opportunities. You play in the centre of midfield, you play in the middle of the pitch, you play at half back or back row, and you just leave these kids behind. So any selection at all across any team sport that involves some form of physicality, movement, will be dominated like this. Netball will be the same, hockey is the same because I've got the stats. Ice hockey is ridiculous. That's the one extreme. That's really high. So this is rugby. So from a rugby point of view, and these programs are run by academies. They know what they're doing, and they still pick the vast majority of people who were born September, October, November, and they hardly pick anybody who's born June, July, August. However, this is where the cool stuff happens. So because by the time you get to the seniors, and it's not exactly 25, but it just levels itself out. It sorts itself out. People get into similar environments. The big dramas, the stuff we need to be mindful of is that those kids who have had it really good really early, then what's happening to all of them? Often they just lack resilience. They get frustrated that people have caught them up. And also I'm concerned about how many kids are we potentially losing around Q3, Q4. However, if they stick in it, often they're the most creative ones. Harry Kane, you've all heard the Harry Kane story. Harry Kane is a late birthday. He was released by Arsenal. Pretty bad for me because I'm an Arsenal supporter. He was really physically quite immature. He wasn't having impact on the game. They chucked him up because they didn't think he was very good. Somebody else picked him up, and he's arguably one of the best players in the world. So that would be quite common. So just to have just be mindful of it. So you should just be mixing them up. You should definitely have an awareness of where they are through their physical maturity, because it is going to have a massive impact. Just one thing around, anybody who's seen the Carol Dweck stuff? Yeah. Anything you want to share with it? What was your thoughts on it?
You just got to basically believe in yourself.
Yeah, so it's about the power of yet, isn't it? Self-belief, the power of yet. So I can't do something. So I've heard a lot from the kid, I can't do that. You can't do that yet. I can't kick. You can't kick yet. That type of stuff. I've never been able to kick. No, they didn't talk like that, by the way. I don't know why I spoiled that. So she just talked about fixed and growth mindset stuff. So just stuff around some mindset. So people with fixed think, well, I'm born with it, I can't do it, that type of stuff. I don't think we're helping. You've just got to walk down to school. I'm taking my kids to school and I'm just hearing lots of stuff that's closing their mindset. You can't walk on the wall. You'll probably fall off. All of this stuff, which is you're just really constraining their thoughts. Why can't they walk on the wall? Type stuff, as an example. And growth mindset would be the opposite. So that's it in a slightly nutshell. I would go and listen to Carol Dweck. She does a TED talk. In my opinion, she's got quite an annoying voice. It's an American, South America. However, bear with. So it's about 20 minutes. She gives lots of good examples. She explains it a damn sight better than me. I do think it's useful for you as parents around if you want your kids to have a growth mindset, that everything and anything is possible type stuff, and they're going to explore some stuff. So Carol Dweck would be a real good listen. Right, last thing. So we're on the homeward straight, just some stuff around learning environments. Nick, you mentioned this morning. Flower doesn't bloom. You look, in their words, fix the environment, which it grows, not the flower. So environment is really important. I use the example of nightclub and library. We go into a library, you go into a nightclub, we're going to behave in different ways. Why? Because that's the environment. So the environment is really important. It impacts on your child's behavior, on your behavior all the time. Okay? Obviously. And it's quite obvious. This is some stuff that we came across a few years ago. It's based on the attachment theory. Anybody aware of the attachment theory? Anybody a teacher? Cool. You'll be doing it anyway. So what they were talking about is a bit in the middle. They call safe uncertainty. So that's where the kids are. That's where they're smashing it. That's where the creative stuff comes. That's where the magic comes. It'll be individual, obviously. Let's take from a sporting context. So safe certainty would be stuckness. So that's in our sport, probably in your sports as well. That's probably the one who's, well, let's take rugby because it's a sport I know the best. That's the big kid. Title under 14s, it's Isaac. He's got a beard. He's really fast. In Northumberland, if he picks the ball up and decides he wants to score a try, nobody currently in Northumberland can stop him. So he's quite stuck. He finds the game really easy. So it's just, I think he's and then on the top end is Charlie. Charlie's quite little. He's only come to rugby. His parents didn't play. He's the only lad from his village that comes. He's finding the game quite challenging. He's finding the game quite stuck. So sorry, he's in danger, that unsafe, uncertainty type stuff. So it's a nudge around us. Now, this model's from a guy called Dan Hughes, which is cool. However, I think Dr. Suzanne Brown's better. She's on Twitter. The reason I really like Suzanne Brown is because she's a sports psychologist. So she works in female sport, in the FA, and mainly football. But she works as a performance psychologist. And she also is a child psychiatrist. So she half her time spent with kids who are finding life quite tough. So I really like how she puts up. And she's a rock star presenter. So they would talk about behaviours. Now, I've presented this to some people, so don't spoil the fun. What would P stand for if this was a behaviour? We're now a team. We're going to behave in a certain way so the kids are like smashing it. What would P be from a P? Positive? Yes, I would have won the bet. It's not. It could be. Most people start with positive, which I'm liking. Anything else? What would be a behaviour that we could help the young people? Polite, could be, definitely could be. Participation, could be perseverance, could be all of them. It's none, by the way. Could be pride. It's not patience. Nick, do you want to tell everybody? Yes, stop it. Top of the class. It's playful. Now, L's the easy one. Only dads allowed to guess. What would L be? This is what the dads... Come on, you. What would L be as a behaviour to get the best out of young people? Dads, what would it be? Mums, any chances? It's not listening, it's loving, it's caring. You've got to care for people. There's people out there need to feel as though they're cared for. If we want to get the best out of them, they've got to, and we do care for them, then we are caring for them. So they're the behaviours. Playful, loving, accepting, curious, empathy. So they are the behaviours. They're the behaviours demonstrated by adults that are going to help kids absolutely smash it. So it's maybe something to be thinking around the learning environment. Anybody aware of that random number that adds up to 100? It's kind of my take on it a bit. It's round and round. So I would want more success than stuff not going well. So when we're coaching them out there, I want lots of kids to be able to catch, pass, have some good moments. But I want probably up to 40% of it not to go well, because that's where the learning is. So it needs to be a combination. So perfect practice is not that helpful. If your son plays cricket and he's in the nets and he's smashing everything, he's not going to get a lot better. He needs to get out. He needs to find it tough. He needs to be stretched, and then he needs to have success, and then he needs to be stretched. And obviously lots of it comes from mistakes. Maybe one thing, the Man United coach, who is one of the best coaches I've seen, he calls mistakes clues. So say I passed something to you and you dropped it, he would just view that as a clue. You nodded your head as if that was going to happen. No, I'm just going to joke. So, but he would just see that as a clue. So he wouldn't view it as a mistake. It's just a clue to that player learning some stuff to get better the next time. Even this guy. Teachers, have you seen this? Is this something that you've seen before? So basically the learning pit, it's how you learn stuff. Okay, so I can't tackle, I'm in a learning pit, I get support from the coach, I practice it a bit, my mates help me, play some games, review, blah, 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 do all that stuff around learning. I now can tackle. And guess what the coach now's going to do? Once I can do something? It's going to find something else that I'm going to find difficult. So you're just in learning pits, out in a pit, out in a pit. Okay? It's just learning, it's just normal. My son was on the phone last night for a bit, he's had a bit of a bad run about. It's just normal, mate. It's just part of you being a pretty good cricketer. And he's like, blah, 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 type stuff. He was pretty upset. Here's some information just around learning, probably around the environment. We need to be at the bottom end. We need to be able to generate discussions, create stuff where they experience stuff. Definitely create lots and lots of the coaching this week would have been the kids just coaching each other. With the coach there, their role is to facilitate that. So we're just ensuring that that's happening, because that's what you are as a coach. You're a facilitator of learning. Okay? Occasionally I might share some stuff, tell them some stuff, have some experiences, however. So that's where we want to be around learning. This is my favourite slide, and you'd be pleased to know it's nearly the last one. So I think if we said in sport, girls just jump in around, adapt. So I think that's the ultimate. So if somebody said to me, well, what are you trying? I'm just trying to develop really adaptable players and adaptable teams. Why? Because I think they've got a better chance of winning. So currently in our sport, and probably in your sports as well, the teams that are rocking it, often winning stuff or winning stuff a lot, will be the teams who are adaptable. So they're a skill to create different actions that achieve successful outcomes. So they can do lots of different things, obviously. Now the key to that is around exploration. And your kids, all of them, even the older ones, the ones at 16, are still in an area where they should be having a high exploration. They should be trying stuff. So try something today you've never tried before, that type of mentality. Okay, so if you're used to playing in a certain position, maybe go and play somewhere else. So decision making is you have more than one option. So unfortunately, sometimes I see coaching and I say, what have you been doing? I've been doing some decision making. That's interesting. You told him what to do and there's only one thing allowed. That's not decision making. So decision making needs at least one option for it to be decision making. So block, random would be the other extreme. Random would be the game. So lots of the training that we would have been doing would have been through games. Would have felt random, would have felt chaotic, would have felt really dynamic. And then variable is just the bits in the middle type stuff. So it's not drill, it's not the game, it's a hybrid. Now the coaches and our coaches and the environments, we would have been doing that all the time. We go from game, then we do some block, and a bit of variable. So that's the language and that's the type of activity. So we'll be doing one of these things. So we're doing some technical stuff, some technical shaping. So it might be around a shot, it might be around a flick, it might be around a pass. So we might be doing a bit of technical stuff. Very quickly, we definitely want to move it into skill. So we want to perform that under pressure. And then it's got to get back in the game. It's got to get back in the game. It's got to have impact in the game. So if it's not having an impact in the game, then you'll just be a good trainer. And I've coached lots of people who are really good trainers, then they play the game and they're not very good. That's why you've got to do lots of your training through games. So if your kids are doing lots of drills, I would be questioning whether they're actually transferring into the game. And you get your feedback as a coach. We get our feedback every time we play. So when we play, that's our feedback. And we've got to earn the feedback. So when we're saying, well, I've told them about that, or they keep doing that, we're still making the same mistakes, that's your feedback. I don't see why you're putting that on the players, because that's coach's responsibility. So there's a couple of things that we've been mainly focusing around would be constraint-led training. So we're going to put some constraints. I'm really quickly going to explain it, and then We're definitely playing around with digital video game approach. Anybody seen any stuff around this on Twitter, or you're using it as coaches? One or two, oh, I'm aware of that. So basically what's happening is we're taking some principles out of gaming and we're just exploring them in sport, because there's some frightening stuff happening in gaming. And it's I don't think it's threatening sport, but it's definitely stuff sport needs to be aware of. So the reason why do kids game, and there's some stuff that we need to build into our sport, because there's more boys, apologies, I don't have the information on girls, and girls definitely don't game as much as boys, but there's more boys aged between the ages of 11 and 14 play Fortnite than play football. And there's a damn sight more kids play football than play any other sport. So there's a lot of people gaming. There was a millionaire, wasn't it, the other day I seen? Millionaire kid from the southwest. Sorry, the southeast. So I'm really quickly going to just, on the keys transfer, the keys that they need to be better at netball, they need to be better at hockey, they need to be better at playing rugby. Okay, that's obviously why we train. I'm just going to give you this information. The top ones is stuff. So constraint is really quickly, it's a boundary that shapes a movement control. So Karen's coaching and she moves the posts, or she changes a rule, or she adds a player. That's a constraint. It's impacting. And what the players will do is they'll understand that constraint and they'll adapt. They'll basically do this. They'll organize or reorganize their movement solutions. It's a posh word. Basically, that's what we've been doing all week. We change a rule, we change a pitch, we change which way we play, and we add a player. We have a challenge. There's all of that sort of stuff. That's constraints. That's basically what most coaches do. Most coaches don't even, they're using the constraint-led approach. But that's what coaching is. Just want to show you, because that's a really powerful, I think it brings to life. You can't adapt to an environment that you don't inhabit. So if you want people to be adaptable in the game, I think we do, when they've got to practice it. It's got to look and feel like the game. The kids have got to understand, well, where does this fit in? Type stuff. That's for the purists. If we've got any coaches out there. Because there's sometimes just, oh, well, they're playing games, they're learning. Well, they could probably learn more if you coach better in that type of environment. Good constraint-led coaching is not hands-off, but it's all of that. And that's what you definitely would have seen. I've been around all the sports. I'm seeing that in abundance. Really skillful coaching within a constraint-led approach. And the next one, put your hand up if you're a gamer. Who games? I bet no parents put their hands up. I do. Oh, obviously the young people game. I do a bit on FIFA. I play Mario Kart. I want to class this. So what's your favourite game? FIFA, class. Do you want to tell the grown-ups what a sweaty is? What's a sweaty?
Where you cross it and you look like you're about to shoot and then you just let your cross goal.
Bastards. So it's basically a tap-in, isn't it? Yeah. It's a tap-in, sweaty. So when I'm in the garden playing in the Fletcher game of football, sweaties are worth 2 points because they're the best thing ever. So, and we need to be aware of that, especially if you're a coach. So we were playing sweaties. We had points out there for sweaties because that's their world. It's their language. It's not our game, by the way. So we kind of talk about that. Really quickly, there's 5 principles. So this is what we've been doing lots of. And this is going to come more and more into sport. Governing bodies need to wake up and smell the roses around gaming, unless they will get left behind. And some coaches will get left behind, quite frankly. So there's 5 principles. Around missions, the kids love gaming because it's a mission. They know where it's going to end up. So if they're in a race, they know it's going to be an end of a race. Football, there'll be an end of a football match type stuff. Often we do training sessions, and the kids haven't got a clue what the purpose is. And we need to use different language, so we would call it a mission. Right, fellas, a mission today. You've got a secret mission. And they get they're super excited. The second one will be around levels. So the uniqueness of gaming is you play through levels. You start on level 1, and you go to, what's the end level, kids? What's the end level called in all the platform games? Have you heard of boss level? You don't do Fortnite? You should try mate's class. Obviously, in a really controlled environment, obviously. It's called the boss level. So we've been working this week to get the boss level. This is what the boss level looks like. Often the boss is the biggest baddies who they're trying to get. It takes quite a long time. You have to be really skillful to do it. So we've been playing through levels. The kids love playing through. Right, this is the level 2. They're deciding their own rules. They're deciding how they score points, because that's why they like gaming, because we're often not in the room. 3 would be superpower. Superpowers basically, so we would give you a superpower which will allow you to access a part of the game that you wouldn't access without the superpower. Really important around if you're coaching mixed range groups. So often superpowers will afford players who are finding the game quite tough. They'll become even more important to their teammates, and they'll get into a part of the game. So the other day, Duffs came across, really skillful coach. He gave a superpower to a player. That player started scoring tries. He hadn't scored a try for about 20 minutes because of that superpower. Just should have seen the kid. So superpowers are awesome. Kids love superpowers. Pausing is the one we're struggling with the most as coaches. So pausing. So guess who causes the pauses currently now in a training session? Which people stop the game or stop the training session? Who is it? Coach. It's the grown-up. Guess what happens in gaming? Who pauses on gaming? Your mum. Your tea's ready. Nice. I'm the same. Ted, stop that in here. In gaming, it's the kids. They're playing. Actually, I want to stop. And then they go and stuff. So they might want to go onto YouTube to try and find how to beat this. Might phone their mates. So they might actually want to go on to a different level. So they might say, well, actually, I'm bored of this level. I want to go back to that one. But it's the key is they pause it. So in the stuff that we've been doing, the kids stop it. And they go, right, pause. Actually, we want to change this. It's their choice. It's their game. Now, we're still a coach. We might be nudging them. Well, are you really? Actually, no, let's just go with this. Oh, okay, let's try it. So pausing's class. It's changed my world. I've been coaching a long time. Pausing is changing my world as a coach. And the last one is safe progress. So safe progress is basically the kids go back to where they want to go back, not where you want to start. So they start the next session. So what happens when they game and they stop? Tea's ready. They don't go back on the game for 3 or 4 days. However, 3 or 4 days later, where do you think they go back to? Where? Yeah, they go back where they want to go at. They probably go back where they start. So what do we do often? Let's start here. Like some real, often quite boring stuff. Often some stuff. So the kids decide. So that we save progress. The kids decide. Anyway, I'm pretty excited about it because I think it's one of the big things that's coming into sport. Some governing bodies are reacting pretty well. Lots of coaches are reacting pretty well to it. We're having a lot of fun as coaches with it as well. There's just a couple of shout-outs.